Before you begin assembly, take some time to inventory wood parts, hardware, and accessories. Check off each item on the parts identification sheet. It's a good idea to organize the wood pieces by step. To make this easier, each of the pieces has a key number stamped on the ends of the boards. If any of the parts are missing or damaged, don't return them to the store. Contact our customer experience team directly. Place the left and right access rails on the ground with the angled ends facing up. Fit each of the ladder treads into the grooves. Make sure the top edge of each tread is flush to the front of the access rails. Pre-drill through the holes on the sides of each access rail, then attach the ladder treads with 4 wood screws each. Place the ladder gap just below the curved ends of the access rails. Use a measuring tape to position it 2 3/8 inch from the top edge of the top tread. Attach the ladder gap with 4 1 3/8 inch wood screws. Position one end of the RWAL support over the angled ends of the access rails. Slide the rock rail under the other end and orient it the same way as the access rails. When the ends are flush, attach the RWAL support to the access rails and rock rails using 3 1 3/8 inch wood screws in the top holes and 3 2-inch wood screws in the bottom holes. Flip the access ladder Rockwall assembly over and place the access board flush to the top. Then place the access rock bottom at the bottom of the assembly. Now place the remaining rock boards so that the holes on the top are staggered. Once all of the rock boards are snugly in place, use a square to ensure they're properly aligned with the assembly. When one end is flush to the left access and the pilot holes are centered over the rock rail, fasten each of the rock boards using 4 wood screws. Don't attach the access board yet. You'll attach it in a later step. With some help, move the assembly into a vertical position. Attach each one of the rocks onto the face of the rock wall using a pan bolt and all of the hardware provided to secure each rock properly. It's a good idea to alternate colors and shapes to make the climbing experience more interesting. With some assistance, move the narrow panel back into place so that it overlaps the edge of the end slide panel. Make sure the top and bottom of the 2 panels are flush. Use a square to align the panels at a 90-degree angle. Then pre-drill through the 4 holes along the edge of the narrow panel back. Use 4 wafer lags to fasten the panels together. When you're done, check the alignment again with a square. Repeat those steps to attach the narrow front panel against the right side of the slide end panel. On this end, make sure the end slide panel overlaps the narrow front panel. Move the panel front wall into position so that it overlaps the left side of the SW wall panel. Make sure they're flush at the top and bottom. Then, use a square to ensure the panels are at a 90-degree angle. Pre-drill through the 4 holes along the edge of the panel front wall. Then, fasten the panels using wafer lags. Repeat to attach the wall panel back to the right side of the SW wall panel. On this end, the SW wall panel overlaps the back wall panel. Once again, make sure the panels are square and flush before fastening with wafer lags. With some assistance, move the slide wall assembly and swing wall assembly together so that the ends of the panels fit tightly against each other on both sides. Make sure the assembly is square. Inside the assembly, position a floor joist at the bottom of the narrow back panel and back wall panel. Make sure the ends are tight to the slide end panel and the SW wall panel. Then attach the floor joist with 4 pan screws. Repeat to install a second floor joist at the bottom of the narrow front panel and front wall panel. On the inside of the assembly, position a side joist halfway up the narrow back panel and back wall panel. Use a hammer to tap 3 T-nuts into the panel on the outside, then from the inside, attach the side joist loosely with 3 wafer bolts. Use a measuring tape to make sure the top of the floor joist is 5/8 of an inch below the bottom edge of the openings. When it's perfectly level, secure the side joist in place with 2 wood screws. Now tighten the bolts. Repeat to install a second side joist on the inside of the narrow front panel and front wall panel. From inside the assembly, position a tie against the top of the narrow front panel and front wall panel. It should be centered over the place where the two panels meet. Make sure the tie is flush to the top and the angled edges are facing out. Attach it with 2 hex bolts. Then secure the tie in place with 2 wood screws. Repeat to install a second tie at the top of the narrow back panel and back wall panel. From inside the assembly, place a flat panel bracket about 2/3 of the way up where the narrow back panel and back wall panels meet. Secure it with 4 pan screws. Now attach a second flat panel bracket, this time about 1/3 of the way up the panels. Attach 2 more flat panel brackets in the same manner against the narrow front panel and front wall panel. Now attach panel corner brackets in all 4 bottom corners of the assembly. Use 4 pan screws to secure each one in place. Place a floorboard over the 2 side joists so that it's tight against the SW wall panel. Fasten it with 4 1 3/8 inch wood screws, then repeat to install a second floorboard tight against the slide end panel. Next, position the long floor joist so that it's tight to the bottom of each floorboard. Attach it with 2 3-inch wood screws through the pilot holes on the outside of the slide end panel and SW wall panel. Back inside, use 2 1 3/8 inch wood screws to attach each floorboard to the long floor joist. Use a tape measure to ensure there's a distance of 35 3/4 inches from the inside of the front wall to the inside of the back wall. Starting at the slide wall, place 3 floorboards tight to the first one. The narrow floorboard is next. Then add the remaining 8 floorboards. Take some time to make sure the boards are evenly spaced. Then use wood screws to attach all of the floorboards to the 2 side joists and the long floor joist in the middle. Place the SW wall top at the bottom of the opening in the SW wall panel. It should sit tight to the corner of the panels on each side with the overhang facing in. Attach it with 1 wood screw at each end. Repeat this instruction to install 1 half wall top to the slide end panel and 1 wall top in the wall back panel. Position a corner bracket at the top of each slat to connect the wall tops to the panels. Attach each bracket using 3 pan screws. Insert a T-nut into the hole on one side of the diagonal, then align it with the hole on the SW ground before attaching loosely with a wafer bolt. Next, place the diagonal so that it's tight and flush to the front of the slide end panel. After checking to make sure the bottom of the SW ground is flush to the ground, then pre-drilling through a hole at the top of the diagonal, attach it to the slide end panel using a wafer lag. Attach the SW ground to the slide end panel with 2 wood screws. Then tighten the bolt. Insert a T-nut into the hole on one side of the diagonal, then position it against the edge of the SW wall panel. Move the support diagonal into place, loosely attaching one end to the diagonal with a wafer bolt. Align the pilot holes on the assembly and top of the diagonal, then pre-drill. Attach the diagonal with a wafer lag. Next, check to make sure the bottom of the support diagonal is flush to the ground, then attach it to the SW wall panel with 3 wood screws. Tighten the wafer bolt. Move the access ladder Rockwall into position against the wall panel back. Make sure the top edge is flush to the top of the floorboards and the assembly is flush to the outside edge of the wall panel back, then attach it with 4 wood screws. Place the access board in the opening at the top of the Rockwall assembly. Make sure it's flush to the top and sides, then attach with 4 wood screws. Position the RWAL ground brace on the ground between the SW wall panel and the bottom of the rock rail. Make sure the front edges are flush, then attach with 2 2-inch wood screws. Next, measure to make sure there is 4.5 inches from the end of the RWAL ground brace and the edge of the panel. Attach the other end of the RWAL ground brace to the bottom of the end slide panel using two 2-inch wood screws in the holes closest to the end of the board and one 3-inch wood screw in the inside hole.